My name is Elena Brooks, and if you're listening to this, it means I survived him. Or at least, I survived long enough to tell the story. 3 years ago, I saved a stranger's life in the emergency wing of Northbridge Medical Center in Seattle. He was bleeding out after a late-night collision. No identification, no family present. Just a cold stare, even while unconscious, like he was fighting something deeper than death. I should have walked away. Instead, I stayed. His name was Adrian Mercer, son of a tech magnate, heir to Mercer Holdings, cold, controlled, calculating, and in another lifetime, the man who destroyed mine. You won't believe me, I wouldn't either, but I remember dying. I remember fighting him in a locked penthouse bedroom. I remember screaming that love wasn't ownership. I remember collapsing after weeks of trying to escape him. And I remember the way he held my body after. That was my first life. Then I woke up. Same hospital, same city, 3 years earlier. And the first thing I heard was someone yelling, "Code trauma incoming, Prep Bay 3. When they rolled him in, blood on his collar, jaw clenched, I nearly dropped the chart. Adrian. Again. In my first life, I saved him and he chained my future to his. In this life, I swore I would never let him see me. It was 10:17 p.m. on a Thursday when everything started repeating. Security was doing random compliance checks on the 6th floor, same as before. A nurse found a pink diamond stud in the corridor, same as before, only this time it was mine. I hadn't even realized it was missing. "Elena, this yours?" a colleague asked casually. I felt ice run through my veins. In my previous life, that earring became the thread that led him to me. Because Adrian remembered. He remembered the nurse who saved him. He said he owed me his life, and Adrian Mercer never left debts unpaid. I forced a smile. "Nope, not mine." But he was already walking down the corridor. Tall, perfectly tailored, eyes like he was analyzing stock futures instead of people. When he stopped in front of me, my pulse stuttered. "Have we met?" he asked quietly. No recognition. Not yet. I kept my mask on, my voice neutral. "I don't think so, sir." He studied me longer than necessary. Then, 3 years ago, Harborview Expressway, you pulled me from a vehicle. My heart stopped. He remembered. "Sir," I said evenly, "I'm sure someone else helped you." His lips curved slightly, not a smile, more like a claim. "I told her," he continued calmly, "that I would take responsibility." The hallway felt too small. "In this life," he said softly, "I don't let go of what's mine." I walked away before my hands started shaking, because I knew what came next. Obsession disguised as gratitude, control disguised as love, and a cage disguised as a marriage. But this time, I would not be his bird. That night, I went home to the only person who ever truly chose me, my brother, Lucas Brooks. He adopted me emotionally long before paperwork made it official. When our parents divorced, neither wanted the sick 6-year-old girl who cost too much in hospital bills. Lucas was 14. He begged our aunt to take me in. He worked part-time jobs. He skipped college offers to stay close. Everything I am is because of him. And in my first life, Adrian destroyed that too. But in this one, Lucas was alive, healthy, and I would protect him at all costs, even if it meant stepping back into the lion's den. I thought avoiding Adrian was enough. I was wrong, because 2 weeks later, my brother collapsed, and the only man who could save him was the one I feared most.
It started with a phone call. "Elena, it's Dr. Carter. You need to come to the oncology wing. Now." I already knew. I don't know how, but I did. Lucas had been tired for weeks, pale, brushing it off as overwork. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Even as a nurse, the words felt like a gunshot. Treatment was possible, but expensive. The transplant alone? Nearly $1 million. We had maybe $80,000 in savings between us. I remember staring at Lucas asleep in the hospital bed, thinking, this didn't happen in my first life. In my first life, Lucas died in a car accident, one I blamed on Adrian. What if that accident was never random? What if this illness was the thread I never saw? I didn't have time to untangle fate. I needed money, fast. I picked up extra shifts, bartended at a private lounge at night, sold my car, and then Adrian showed up. Not in anger, not in obsession, in a tailored charcoal suit, walking into Lucas's hospital room like he owned the building. "How is he?" Adrian asked, calmly. "How do you know?" I demanded. "You're not subtle, Elena." It was the first time he said my name. "I can help," he said simply. "I don't need charity. It's not charity, it's an investment." In what? In you. There it was, the hook. "I'll cover the transplant, full treatment, top specialists. What's the catch? Marry me." I laughed. Actually laughed. "You think I'd sell my life?" He didn't blink. "You are already selling. You're exhausting yourself trying to outwork a medical bill you can't afford." Silence. Then softer. "I'm not asking for love, just loyalty." That word again. Loyalty. In my first life, loyalty meant isolation. It meant cutting off Lucas. It meant surveillance, restrictions, suffocation. "I won't be controlled," he replied. "You won't be harmed. That's not the same." He leaned closer. "If I violate your autonomy in any way, you can divorce me immediately. Put it in writing." He was offering a contract, a cage with a safety latch, and Lucas's heart monitor beeped steadily behind me. "I'll do it," I whispered. But this time, I would never let it become what it was. I thought a contract would protect me. I didn't realize the real danger wasn't Adrian's obsession, it was the secret someone was hiding about my brother's past. We married quietly at the courthouse in Bellevue. No wedding dress, no rings, just paperwork and conditions. I added clauses. No forced intimacy, no restricting my movement, no interference with Lucas, grounds for immediate divorce upon violation. Adrian signed without hesitation. "If you ever try to trap me," I warned. "I won't," he said. But the way he looked at me, it wasn't possession, it was fear, like he was terrified I'd disappear. Living in his penthouse was surreal. Glass walls overlooking Elliott Bay, security everywhere. Yet he never locked doors, never touched me without permission. He even stopped himself mid-kiss once. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly. That wasn't the man I remembered. That wasn't the monster from my first life. So what changed? Then I found out, through his mother. She visited one afternoon unexpectedly, a composed woman in her late 50s. "You're the first woman he's brought home," she told me. "He never celebrates his birthday," she added. "Why?" "Because I left on his 6th birthday, promised him a surprise, never came back." Her voice broke. "He learned that love leaves." Suddenly, pieces clicked. In my first life, when I tried to leave, he panicked. When he thought Lucas was more important, he spiraled. He wasn't evil, he was terrified, and someone had weaponized that fear. Meanwhile, Lucas's transplant date was confirmed. Adrian paid everything. No hesitation, no reminders, just quiet action. And for the first time, I wondered if I'd misjudged him. The night before Lucas was discharged, he showed up at Adrian's penthouse and accused him of something that shattered everything.
Lucas stood in the center of the living room, like the floor beneath him had cracked open. His hands were shaking, not with fear, with betrayal. You married him because of me. The accusation didn't just land, it sliced. Lucas, that's not what happened. He bought you, Lucas snapped. He always buys everything. Adrian didn't raise his voice, didn't step forward, didn't defend himself with force. He simply stood there, steady. Every dollar used for that foundation was from her event earnings, not mine. Lucas laughed bitterly. You expect me to believe that? Yes, Adrian replied, calm, unmoved. It wasn't arrogance, it was certainty, and that certainty made Lucas furious. You think you can rewrite history? You think I forgot what happened to my parents? The air shifted. I froze. That night, that fire, that accusation, the reason I had hated Adrian in the first place. Before I could step between them, Lucas grabbed his jacket and stormed out. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the glass walls. I stood there, heart pounding. Adrian didn't chase him. He just looked toward the elevator, and for the first time, I saw something in his expression I hadn't noticed before. Fear. An hour later, my phone rang. Unknown number. Then another call. Then Adrian's security chief burst through the penthouse doors without knocking. There's been an incident. My blood turned cold. Lucas had been hit by a car, not a random accident, targeted. The driver didn't brake, didn't swerve, they accelerated. Security footage showed it clearly. And worse, there was a second vehicle waiting at the next intersection, prepared to finish it. Corporate rival, the security chief said. They wanted to frame Mr. Vale. Same playbook as before. Just like the fire. Just like the evidence that once pointed straight at Adrian. But this time, something went wrong for them. Adrian had followed Lucas. Not closely, not visibly, just far enough to make sure he was safe. When he saw the second car speeding toward Lucas's fallen body, he didn't hesitate. He turned the wheel and drove directly into oncoming traffic to block it. Metal screamed, glass shattered, airbags deployed. The rival's vehicle fled. Lucas survived with a fractured arm and concussion. Adrian wasn't so lucky. By the time I reached the hospital, he was already in surgery. The ICU smelled sterile and cruel. Machines beeped in cold, rhythmic tones. He looked smaller somehow, less untouchable, bandaged, bruised, pale. This wasn't the powerful man who negotiated billion-dollar deals without blinking. This was someone who had thrown himself into danger, without calculation, without benefit. For Lucas, for me, and something inside me cracked open. For years, I had built my anger carefully, brick by brick. I blamed him for a tragedy he hadn't caused. I assumed manipulation behind every gesture. I called it survival. But standing there, watching him breathe through tubes, I realized something devastating. He had been protecting us, even when I despised him, even when I accused him, even when I married him out of resentment instead of trust. When he finally woke up hours later, his eyes searched the room immediately, not for the doctor, not for a report, for me. I stepped closer. He swallowed painfully before speaking. Is Lucas alive? Yes. Relief flickered across his face, real, unfiltered. Then he asked the question that broke me. Do you still hate me? Not, did I save him? Not, what did the press say? Just that. "Do you still hate me?" And I shattered. The tears came before I could stop them. No. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't poetic. It was the most honest word I had spoken in years. I thought surviving the accident would fix everything. Instead, it forced me into a decision I could no longer avoid: run away with Lucas or stay with the man who nearly died saving him.
Lucas recovered fast. Too fast, maybe. Physical wounds were easier than pride. He showed up at my apartment 3 days after discharge, 2 tickets in his hand. "Boston," he said, "tonight." I stared at the printed boarding passes. "Come with me," he pleaded. "You don't love him. You never did." The words echoed longer than they should have. Did I? I didn't know what love looked like anymore. What I knew was this: Adrian had never broken the terms of our agreement, not once. He never touched me without asking, never isolated me from friends, never used money as a leash, never retaliated when I provoked him, never harmed Lucas. And when danger came, he chose us, without hesitation. Lucas saw a villain, but I was beginning to see a man who had been carrying guilt that wasn't his, and I had let him, because it was easier than rewriting my narrative. At the airport, the noise felt overwhelming. Announcements, rolling suitcases, final boarding calls. Lucas squeezed my hand. "We can start over," he said. I looked at my phone. No calls from Adrian, no security interference, no threats. Just one message: "Happy birthday to me. I won't force you to stay." That was it. No manipulation, no dramatic plea, just freedom. And suddenly I understood something that hit harder than guilt. He could have stopped me, legally, financially, strategically. He didn't, because he wanted me to choose. And I had been running for years, from grief, from blame, from responsibility. I wasn't trapped. I was afraid. Final boarding for Boston. Lucas stood. I didn't. My legs wouldn't move, not toward the gate. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "For what?" he asked. "For realizing too late that this isn't about escape." I didn't board the plane. This time, I wasn't running from him. I was running toward him, and I was finally ready to tell him the truth.
The penthouse was quiet when I returned. Too quiet. No staff hovering, no lights blazing, just the glow of the city stretching endlessly below. He was sitting near the window. No decorations, no cake, no celebration. Just a man who had prepared himself to be alone on his birthday. When the elevator doors opened, he didn't turn immediately. "I didn't leave," I said. His shoulders stiffened. Then slowly he faced me. There was no relief in his expression, only disbelief. "Why?" he asked quietly. I walked closer, because this time I wasn't speaking from anger. I was speaking from clarity, because I remembered something. He waited. "In another life, I died hating you." His breath caught, and I was wrong. Silence stretched between us, not uncomfortable, just heavy with everything unsaid. I don't need protection that feels like a cage, and I don't need revenge disguised as justice. I stepped closer still. I need a partner. His voice was softer than I had ever heard it. "You have one. Not ownership, not control, equality." Lucas healed completely, physically at least. Time softened his anger. Adrian stepped back from the corporate battlefield that had nearly destroyed all of us. Not because he was weak, but because he no longer needed to prove anything. We moved, not to another tower, but to a house, with sunlight, with walls that weren't glass, with space that felt human. And this year, He celebrated his birthday. There was cake, there were candles, there was laughter, and there was no fear lurking beneath the surface. If you've ever loved someone who was broken or been terrified of repeating your past, remember this. People can change, but only if you let them. And sometimes forgiveness isn't about excusing the past, it's about refusing to let it dictate your future. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, would you have boarded that plane? Because sometimes the bravest thing isn't escaping, it's staying.